I am fired up today, Falcons fans. Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. And the reason I'm so fired up is because according to multiple New York Giant news outlets, there is a belief among other coaching candidates that John Harbaugh will land with either the New York Giants or the Atlanta Falcons, per one Connor Hughes, who is incredibly connected to the New York Football Giants. Now, the back half of this says that the loser of those would end up getting Kevin Stefanski. But what you're telling me is right now that there's a 50-50 shot that we land John Harbaugh. Let's freaking go, man. Come on. This is the best possible news that we could hear outside of the Atlanta Falcons are hiring John Harbaugh. Why? I could have sworn even 24 hours ago that Harbaugh was going to end up the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And now it looks like that between the Giants and the Falcons, there is a toss-up now as to where Harbaugh is going to land. And this, of course, is why you subscribe. By the way, we're 66 subscribers away from hitting 49,000 here on the channel. And I can guarantee you there's going to be 66 new Falcons fans that are watching this episode right now. So if you love the daily Atlanta content, if you love the Harbaugh news, the Harbaugh rumors, the coaching search, everything in between, smash subscribe and hit that thumbs up icon because it pushes the video out to other Falcons fans just like you. Let's talk about what Sports Talk New York said about this whole situation. Connor Hughes basically kind of wrapping up everything that we need to know about this recent development. The Giants are all in on John Harbaugh, sources told SNY. He is the number one on the team's board, and the question is how much Harbaugh wants the New York Giants. He values the opening, sources said, because of the franchise's history and the quarterback Jaxson Dart, but New York is not the only team pursuing him. We knew this to be true, by the way. Other openings could offer Harbaugh influence over the choice of general manager, something the Giants are not currently willing to entertain, as they do not have a plan to move on from Joe Schoen at this time. But what has an opening right now? I don't know if you knew, Falcons GM is wide butt booty naked open. And the Atlanta Falcons are a team to monitor, sources say. There is a belief amongst other coaching candidates that it's the Giants and the Falcons for Harbaugh, with the loser of the sweepstakes landing Kevin Stefanski. And trust me, we'll talk about Kevin Stefanski on the back half of this episode. But right now, let's remain positive. So it's between two teams, essentially. You got the Giants, you got the Falcons. Now, if you were to ask me, this is a no-brainer. You got dummy Joe Schoen up there in New York who has no idea how to run an organization. And you got a fresh, clean slate in Atlanta with basically, no pun intended, a blank check from team's owner, Arthur Blank. But this is also significant news. Tom Pelissero came out with this, and I believe that this is an indicator that the Atlanta Falcons might be even more heavily pursuing John Harbaugh because former Miami Dolphins Mike McDaniel is interviewing with the Browns, Falcons, and Titans for head coaching jobs per sources, but then other reports indicate that Mike McDaniel is interviewing with the Falcons today about coaching opportunities, meaning he might not be able to get the head coaching job, He might not be able to get the head coaching job, but instead as an offensive coordinator. Now, we also know that the two-man tandem of John Harbaugh bringing in Todd Monken is probably option A. But if Monken goes elsewhere, if Monken tries to dip his hand somewhere else for whatever reason, could you see a Mike McDaniel and Harbaugh connection? I think it is entirely possible. Specifically because John Harbaugh could mentor Mike McDaniel, who would then eventually, at some point, be ready to take on another head coaching opportunity elsewhere if he wanted to spend a couple of years with the Atlanta Falcons. I think it is a home run idea. But why would you choose Atlanta? I've broken this down multiple times. I'm going to break it down one more time for you. You got a new president of football operations, or just president of football, in Matt Ryan. You have a new GM, which apparently now is up for basically all interpretation of who it's going to be. That's going to be named later, and maybe John Harbaugh has some influence there. You can bring in your own staff, and it's a probably the most winnable division in the entire National Football League. And Atlanta, by the way, is a sleeping giant. When Ben Johnson took the job in Chicago, the one thing he kept reiterating over and over again is when he would play them as the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, he kept saying, man, Chicago is a sleeping giant. And look, they're on their way after beating the Green Bay Packers in this most recent game to the NFC divisional round. That could be the Atlanta Falcons next year. But I'm all aboard the John Harbaugh train. Toot, toot. And if you're on board, not as cornball as that may be, make sure you type your Y for yes or your N for no down in the comment section down below, and at least defend your answer as to why you believe you're on the Harbaugh train or another train altogether. Now, before we continue on, talk about a little bit about Kevin Stefanski here at the back half of this episode, because the second half of that report is that the loser of those sweepstakes for Harbaugh would end up with Stefanski. So what does happen if they don't hire Harbaugh? Atlanta, that is. Well, you're most likely looking at Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion. We'll break it down. Trust me. But before we do that, I got to tell you about my friends over at PrizePicks. A new year means new stuff, and it is hard getting into new routines and making new picks elsewhere. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. And whether you're starting that new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be difficult. But in life and on PrizePicks, it is always good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every single weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops, and PrizePicks lets you take control. Find your community on PrizePicks, and with the new social feeds feature, you can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy lineups from winners in a singular click. Copy those lineups that you like and use them as inspiration for your own picks, or you can fade or tail our picks with just one click. Now, how does it work? It takes 30 seconds to make a lineup, my friends. You pick the player. You pick the more or the less on their stat projections, and you watch your money multiply. Up to 2,000 times your cash this football season on PrizePicks. So do me a favor, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It is good to be right. So the reports say that Kevin Stefanski is plan B. And before you get all up in arms and you rush down to the comment section, I do want to just brief, deep breath in, deep exhale out. Stefanski is good. He's not great. Don't let working for the Cleveland Browns fool you. There are levels to dysfunction in the NFL. Yes, the Atlanta Falcons have been dysfunctional, but they've never scraped the bottom of the barrel quite like the New York Jets, the Las Vegas Raiders, or the Cleveland Browns. And Kevin Stefanski's track record of getting that Cleveland Browns team to the playoffs, I believe twice, is still pretty remarkable. He's a two-time head coach of the Year award winner. He's an offensive-minded head coach with heavy play-action mindsets, and he has 8 combined wins in the last 2 seasons. But this is clearly an upgrade over Raheem Morris by far. But the Browns' woes, something that the Browns have dealt with this last year, is an awful offensive line. Well, the Atlanta Falcons' offensive line was kind of middle of the road. It wasn't great, and it actually started to decline as the season went on. But the Browns' offensive line was bad from start to finish. They brutally mismanaged the quarterback situation with Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett. They have virtually no weapons outside of half of Jerry Jeudy and Quinshon Judkins. And the whole Deshaun Watson situation, don't even get me started on it. It's really hard to evaluate Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, because the Cleveland Browns are the Cleveland Browns. What's that old saying? We're the Cleveland Browns. It's kind of like that, man. Like, the Browns are just so dysfunctional. They're so bad. They're just all over the map in terms of what they're able to accomplish. They went from playoff contention to scraping the bottom of the barrel, back up to playoff contention, back to the bottom. I mean, it's a nonstop roller coaster of chaos and dysfunction in Cleveland. So I don't think you can necessarily look at Kevin Stefanski's tenure and call it a complete failure, because if you go back to his first 4 seasons with the Cleveland Browns, it was actually pretty decent. His worst year came in 2022 at 7-10. But in 2020, he won 11-5. In 2023, he won 11-6. So let's just start taking note of when you put the right pieces around him, he can actually win football games. He can. Now, is he as good of a coach as Harbaugh? Hell no. He's not even remotely close. Harbaugh is not, he's way out in front of everybody in this coaching cycle. But Kevin Stefanski is not a downgrade from Raheem Morris. So I want Harbaugh. That's my guy. That's my number one. But I'm not going to act like Kevin Stefanski is a downgrade from Raheem. Now, does the Clint Kubiak reports just subside? No, not necessarily. Does the Mike McDaniel, news, does that end? No. Matt LaFleur is staying in Green Bay. We saw those reports this morning. So it kind of looks like right now it's either Harbaugh or it's Stefanski. And either one of them is better than Raheem Morris. There's no doubt about it. So before we continue on and end today's episode, I just want to remind you we're 66 subscribers away. Everybody just keep your eyes peeled on the whole Harbaugh situation. If I'm Arthur Blank, I'm getting on the phone with his agent and I am saying I will allow Harbaugh to come in and have a say in where we are at with our GM search. And if you love the Atlanta Falcons, you gotta sub to this channel. We're growing constantly. I'm going to be here to break it all down. We'll go live every time there's a hiring. Do not worry about it whatsoever. All right, that's all I got for you on this episode. I'll be back a little bit later with some more news and rumors. Until next time, Falcons fans, rise up and be cool.